Today's guest on the Happiness Hive podcast is such a beautiful, beautiful soul, Maddi Green. I met Maddi only a few months ago and at a business event here in Canberra, and we just connected. We just had this kind of magnetic crush on each other. I had a crush on you. And Maddi's since been at the Happiness Hangout. She's been one of our guest speakers and helping women in our community to feel more confident in front of the camera. Maddi is not only a brilliant photographer and videographer, where she has a real passion for capturing the essence of the moment. And so whether that's through a wedding or a christening or family events, she's also just very excited, finished her journalism degree and works at a local radio station here as a journalist and a reporter, plus a million other things that we're going to find out about Maddi today. Welcome. How are you?
Oh, it's so wonderful to be I'm listening to your podcast all the time, so it's funny to be also on the other end. I'm normally the one asking the questions, so Kath, it's the roles are reversed, and it's funny.
Is it funny? And Maddi's coming to us. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, Maddi's got this really funky orange and black background. That's your recording studio, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was like, oh, you know what? I've been at work since 4:30 this morning, but by the time I get home, by the time, you kind of, once you get home, you kind of remove yourself from the work kind of mindset. Yeah. So I was like, look, I'm going to stay around, and you get the beautiful orange plus black recording studio, so it's pretty exciting.
That's pretty funky.
Yeah.
Interesting that you said that you're normally the one interviewing, because that's what you do for you've been studying that, you've been working in a journalist role.
Yeah.
What's the difference? What's sort of going on for you as the being interviewed?
Yeah, so for the last 4 years, I've done a double degree in film production and journalism. So for the last 4 years has basically been building my brand, building my skills and my portfolio. And now I've kind of been chucked in the deep end. I've been doing exactly what I do right now compared to what I do now that I've graduated. But there's just a little, I don't know, there's this energy that's different. You don't have the safety barrier of uni I'm looking forward to Christmas and having a break, that's for sure.
So that's big, 4 years with a double degree and a pretty full-on degree and building your business. Can I ask you, Maddi, how old you are?
Yeah, so, and I find it really funny talking about age sometimes because age is a particular thing of age experience and whether they correlate and whether they it's, I guess, maybe a judgment that comes with age. But I've been working hard for the last 4 years, and I am 22. So finished school, went on a gap year, and that kind of unraveled. I had deferred my degree, but I wasn't sure whether I was going to stay in Canberra or go somewhere else. Very lucky that I did stay in Canberra because of that thing called COVID.
Yeah.
Would have had to, bring me back here anyway. Kind of my gap year kind of led me to where I am now. So I'm really glad I did do that. And always been very much a go-getter. But yeah, at the same time, there's, I'm learning, and I also have to take in, the journey of learning as well, which sometimes I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. But it's okay, you know what I mean? Like,
And the reason I asked your age is really just to help the listeners in perspective of what stage of life you're at. And you finished your degree and you are a go-getter. Like I met you, and to me, that's not even an age thing. That's an approach to life thing. So you've achieved a lot already in your years that you've been here. So you went to school here in Canberra or?
Yeah. So Canberra, I'm a Maroochy girl. I'll say that. I'm proud. I love Maroochy.
That's one of the schools here in Canberra. That's a local school in Canberra, well-known school. Yes, should be.
Yeah, proud. So all Catholic girls' school here, and I feel like that probably did bring me to where I am a lot. I had a lot of, it was a lot about empowerment and independence, but teamwork at the same time. So yeah, always been, I'm very, very much a leader as well.
Yeah.
So, went out and got extra experience in little programs. I'll shout out the Girls Leadership Program, which I did in grade 10 and 12, 10, 11, 12. And that really set me up for, actually, if I want something to happen, I actually can go out and get it myself rather than, having to wait or what's the worst that could happen. And that's been my motto the whole time is what's the worst that could happen? They could say no. I could give it a go and it doesn't work out. Like, no regrets, right?
Yeah. And were
so,
you like that, Maddi, as a young child as well? Is that in your DNA, or did you learn that through opportunities through life?
I actually think it is part of my DNA. I am very much an extroverted person, but everyone has those introverted qualities as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, very much an extroverted person. I went out and when I was maybe primary school and busked on the street with my clarinet, raising money for our local charity, and was always, I guess, very much what I don't know.
Driven. I hear driven.
Yeah.
Almost like that if you want something, you do what you need to do to make that happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Driven is what I sort of pick up from that.
Yeah, definitely. And left grade 10 of high school, travelled overseas, went on student exchange to Canada for 3 months, lived, never been overseas in my life. My parents probably freaking out. And here's me, scared because obviously it was a new adventure. But I wanted to do it and came back and it was, the best experience. So very much go out and just why not? Honestly, I've gotten so many amazing memories as well. But yeah, I definitely have that drive. And that comes with downfalls as well. Something doesn't go my way. I'm very much a perfectionist when it comes to, how I work. So yeah, learning how to adapt to that and be okay with it not going your way as well, which, is
I'm
hard.
going to come back to that in a minute. You remind me of my daughter, who is also very, very driven, and she at year 10 actually probably in about year 7, she wanted to go on a student exchange. And I thought year 7, 12, 13-year-olds is probably a little bit too young. So each year it was like, can I go, can I go, can I go? So in year 10, she went to live in Italy, and it was a very big growing up experience for her. And, not all of it went smoothly, but the resilience of being able to how to manage that.
Yeah.
She had to get herself out of some tricky situations on her own. And it was,
It's it is
a big
one
deal, isn't it? The student exchange, that's a wonderful experience. Such a wonderful experience. Yeah. Canada would have been cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I'm the oldest, so I have a younger sister. So I think that also comes with, just being a leader, being, a role model, and showing that, let's take that jump. And so, I think that was probably part of it as well, trying to be that inspiration for her. Which probably came with it as well. And
when you were saying that sometimes on the flip side of it, that, being driven and wanting to do things well, and that perfectionism tendency, what have you experienced with that? Like, has that worked in your favour or worked against you sometimes?
Well, I think definitely if I didn't have that, then things would just be left and not completed, I suppose. So that's, I guess, the positive to it. The negative, I suppose, as well, is being very hard on myself and maybe not getting things done straight away because it's not going to be perfect, or but I've kind of hopefully, like, tried to learn very quickly. And I think that's a big part of what I've done is I've learned very quickly things. So, I would always say yes to every project, and then you just realize you actually can't. Your physical body is not meant for that, and you burn out very quickly. And so I found that out in before I turned 23. So I've learned to be able to say no, which I think is a very important
there's lots of, do you know what? There'll be lots of women here that will be very, very envious of that. And I know it's not a comparison trap or anything like that, but there's a lot of women that I work with. That's one of the things that they find really challenging is how to say no without feeling guilty. And it's almost like this feeling of, if I say no, that's a sign of weakness.
Oh, 100%. And I have that like every time I say no, but the reality is that if you don't, manage what you do, then you burn out, and you can't do anything that you said yes to do. So, like, of course, that's come with guilt. And especially with, I guess, building my career is, if I say no, I won't get this or I won't get that. And there's things that I don't say no to, and there's things I will. So, you prioritize, or you figure out what you say yes and no to. But at the same time, it is so important, because otherwise you burn out, and like you're not efficient with it. Yeah.
And I find that you're really out of alignment. I know when I first started my business, I was always very intentional about the type of work that I would do and the clients that I would have. But there'd be some work that was just on the kind of the periphery of what I wanted to do, but it was a cash flow. And it was like, I'll do those jobs, but I would never sell my soul for jobs. I would never, ever sell my soul. But there was some jobs I'd kind of go, I'm doing this because cash flow is a bit tight. But luckily through the years, I don't have those choices now, but I'm very much about being in alignment with the work that I'm doing, what I'm here for. And sometimes, and I know other people that have their own businesses, especially small businesses, it's like, where's that next job coming from? If I say no to that job, what's the flow on? Because it's weighing up, isn't it? It's really weighing
100%.
up.
Yeah. And like, I definitely acknowledge like my privilege right now. Like, I've been able to stay at home with my parents. Love that.
Perfect.
Rent is very expensive. Won't be moving out because it is so expensive. But so I do understand that I do have that privilege of actually, maybe saying no to, the next job because it's not aligned to what I want, my values or something like that. And that might change. Again, it's that stage of life, right? Like right now I'm in that stage of life where I can be a little bit more flexible. The next 5 years that might look completely different, and I need to take on that. So, but I always think I will come back to how much is too much until you actually physically can't do enough. So that's been a learning curve, right? Like, and for me, it's been really lucky. I've learned that very quickly. But for others, it's not a quick process, or it's you're stuck in your way and you keep on going on that train. It's harder to get off. So I definitely have been able to get off that train very early. So
and it's good. I think that's amazing, and it sounds really great to be able to do that. So you work as a reporter and a journalist with the local radio station. So you start at 4:30, don't you?
I do, yeah. So most days, breakfast radio.
4:30 a.m. That's 4:30 a.m., folks. Yeah. And you have to travel into...
So I live in good old Queanbeyan, and travel, half an hour to work wake up at 3:30, travel about, 4 o'clock and be here by 4:30. Again, it's one of those things that right now it's what I need,
what you choose to do. You're choosing to do
what
that.
I'm in right now, exactly. But long term, I don't know what that looks like as well. But right now, it some mornings feels like I don't know if it's the right, because it sucks getting up. It's very early. I must admit.
That's a tough gig. How do you are you naturally a morning person?
No.
Oh dear.
No.
Oh dear.
No. So when I started the job in April, I was, oh look, the only times I would get up for at 3:30 or 4:30 was when you went off to school camp, right? So it's been a very big adjustment. Yeah, even have to go to bed at
Yeah.
7:30. So my whole social routine has changed a lot as well. I physically have to be a grandma and go to bed at at a reasonable time. So look, maybe I'd be perfect if I had kids right now and I would go to bed with my kids. But right now I go to bed and everyone else is awake around me. But again, it's, I guess, what I've chosen to do right now. But sometimes it sucks.
Sometimes it sucks. Yeah, I can imagine. I'm a morning person. That's super early morning. So you rock up and you prepare for the day. So are you doing reporting on local current events and
yeah. So kind of do like an hourly bulletin, I suppose what you'd say, and that runs throughout the day. I'm lucky in the sense that I'm in regional right now, and or regional news got a, as everyone has seen, regional news has got a big cuts to how they process it. So I work out of Canberra. I work till about 12:30, and then I go home for the last 6 months. I've been doing uni when I would finish. So that process is just never ending, or never trying to find that balance of social or just even me time. And it's a little bit, it won't change too much, I suppose. I run a small business. I run Maddi Green photo and film, and the same thing happens, right? Go home and edit. So but I don't know any other way. But I also know that, Friday night, tonight, I'm going to watch the Taylor Swift movie. And, I'm not the biggest Taylor Swift fan, but my friends are going. And of course, I need that social time and that time with my friends. So there's ways around it, but it's weird. It's definitely a weird adjustment, that's for sure.
I think what you were saying before too about being driven. So you're at uni, you're working full times and running a small business, operating a small business. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
But to me, it sounds like that they're the things that are important to you, and you fit your friendships and your social in. It's not like you've kind of left those go completely, but you fit them in. But it's, to me, that ties in with you being driven about what you want and being able to make it happen. And as you said, that may or may not be what you do moving forward. It might be a different cadence with things, but it's about doing what you do for where you're at. I think that's great.
Exactly.
I think that sounds really great.
Yeah, there's definitely that drivenness. But there's definitely times that, there'll be a massive, and it has been, there's a massive project or a massive bit of uni, and that's had to prioritize. So I've had to balance of being like, it's okay, Maddi, you're going to be okay to not see your friends for a couple of days. They're not going to go anywhere. Get this done, and then life will go back to a little bit of normality. So there is periods like that, and I think everyone has that of having to. I think that's actually becoming an adult, to be honest, is having these periods of, actually, no, I need to just prioritize this part of my life right now, but everything else is going to be okay. It's still going to float along under the surface, and it'll be there for when you want to go back to it. So when
we were at Happiness Hangouts the other night, we had we were talking about our kind of life mottos or important mottos in our lives, and one of the women shared hers was, "This too shall pass." Like, whatever you're going through, it will pass. So when we're in that busy period of life, that busy season, for me, it's about focusing on what I need to do, and that it's not going to be there all the time. It's sort of, and some things do fall by the wayside. And in my life, it's all the stuff surrounding me. Like, I have this little trail of destruction that I sort of half finished bits and pieces, because I'm in a busy, the last probably 6 weeks has been particularly busy. I'm in a bit of a wind down mode. So one of those big projects is coming to completion. So now my job is to go and fix all that trail of destruction that I've left everywhere. But it was like, I can't do everything. I can't do it all. And I am not going to beat myself up to try and do it all. You know how some women, and I've been there and sometimes dip into it, that superwoman going, we have to do everything immaculately. I don't think we do. I think we need to give ourselves permission that, whatever we're doing, focus on the important bits, the big bits, and then the others will just fall into place.
Exactly. And I found that, and it's one of those also, there's so many learning curves, right? But like I would be the type of person that would have to do it all on themselves, like on my own.
Yeah.
And of course, then if something went wrong, then it all just kind of like piled underneath me and I couldn't. So I've actually learned to like ask for help. And I know that's such a simple thing, but it's actually really hard. A simple ask, but it's a really hard ask. Actually asking, or I need more time, or people do understand. And I know there's restrictions to, how that works, but for the most part, or even, asking your family or your partner to be able to, cook, because you need that time to be able to. So, definitely having that, I guess, and it's like really cheesy. And I talk about it with women all the time that I interview, but having that team around you is so important. But it's also really hard to find that team. So, taking the time, and it's okay to one person, that could be your team. So family, friends, people that don't even know business or people that do know business, but just having those support networks. So, when things go crashing down, you're not alone, which is important.
I think that's so important. That's come out in the theme of a couple of the other interviews that I've done as well, that having that people you support network, the people who support you in not just when you're down, but in helping you to rise up as well, and the people that hold space for you, and really being discerning about who that team is, and we need to work at that as well. Like the beautiful Canberra Woman event that we went to, that's part of that community. That Gabby's created this really beautiful space for women to connect and get to know each other, and that's part of forming that team as well. Yeah,
exactly. And there's so many teams and types of teams as well. So finding the team that you go to for work things, or finding the team that you go to for personal things, it's all, because really you can't do anything alone, right? Like as much as we think we can do it, in the end, even if it's just a debrief, that's important.
And then it does make it easier for us to ask, and because that's one of the things I found very difficult, is to ask for help, because that was in my mind, I don't know if it was ever said to me, but I had put the meaning on it that means that I'm weak and I can't do it. And even I'm not sure if my old neighbour listens or not, but when we used to go away on holidays and wanted somebody to look after the dog, I'd always say to my husband, can you go and ask the neighbours if they'll look after the dog? And he's going, why can't you bloody do it? Like, you talk to her all the time. I'm going, but that's just, it physically felt hard for me to ask for such a simple thing. And he would just go and say, we're going away for the weekend. Can you look after the dog? And they go, yeah, sure. Like anytime. And it's this funny, it's funny the meaning sometimes, isn't it, that we put on things like that.
I think that just comes with I don't know, like the perfection part of it, of being like, and you're talking about weakness, right? Or what other people are going to think. Most of the time, no one cares, but
nobody's even thinking about us.
Exactly. But for some reason, we all have that in us, that we're so don't know. I don't know what it is. It must be some type of human thing, because I think
Yeah.
everyone does.
A lot of,
And,
yeah,
yeah,
and almost
and
like
yeah, not even
acknowledging that.
females, like males as well. Like it, just everyone, and no one
Yeah.
cares, because so everyone cares. Like is so worried about themselves
Yes.
that in the end no one cares. But for some reason, even if someone tells you that 50 million times,
Yeah.
the process still doesn't remove. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you
there's
see that
something.
a lot? Do you see that a lot? So you've finished your journalism degree. You've been working as a journalist anyway, and you're running your own business as Maddi Green Photo and Film. So photography and videography, filmography.
Yeah, videography. Yeah.
And so you do a lot of events and families and weddings and
Bit of everything, really,
everything.
right? Well,
Yeah.
you know how we were talking about, like, I can't even remember at this conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, we've kind of gone all over that. Yeah.
But like just at the finding your niche,
Yes.
and that's kind of what I've had to do with my business, is find, you know, that niche. So it is weddings, families, and events. But I also love doing other, you know, other things, because it keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
So I do random, like I'll do not random, but I'll do branding stuff, headshots, like I did at Happiness Hive, and it just keeps it interesting with my business. But yeah, you were saying, sorry, you said,
no, I was going to ask you that when you're photographing, and we were talking about that energy that we carry around weakness, asking. There was something I was going to ask. I was going to go down the path, but to pick up. Do you pick up that energy when you're taking people's photos? Like, are people? Sorry, I'm not making much sense there. Do people? Are people confident having their photos taken? Maybe that's my question. Sorry, that's a bit random.
Yeah. So it's a really big thing, and I think we've also really discovered that confidence is a really very much a changing thing. Of confidence means different things to different people, and there's a limit to what some people can bring and some people can't. I don't know whether, like, my clientele and I attract a particular client that is quite confident, but at the same time, like, you know, your average family who doesn't have their photo taken, I still am able to experience that with them. And it's the whole question of how do I pose, or what do I do, or like what do I do with my hands, or self-confidence, you know, it's confidence, right? But and I also really find it hard to, I guess, pose people, not from a, like, I can't do it technically, but from a, it's not natural a lot of the time. Like, there's things that we can obviously do to enhance, you know, us feeling comfortable, but at the same time, and I think we discovered that at Happiness Hive, was it isn't about the, like, what's actually happening. It's more just like the reasons behind and why we're not confident. So it's simple, you know, like I'll always meet with my clients before, and especially if I've never, like, even with family clients, like I'll talk to them over the phone, or I'll like try and get as much information of what they are as a family, like who they are as a family, what do they like to do. And it's never just stand in front of the camera and smile. It's a lot of interaction, a lot of candid. And that's the same thing with what I encourage, you know, my clients to, as even when they're not with me for a session, is taking photos, you know, on their iPhone, and being able to capture those candid moments, just like we do, you know, what I try to do in my photography, in their everyday life, because obviously I'm not going to be there every day, but there's so many things that should be captured. And I think that's actually why I got into photography and videography, was because I have so many memories as a kid, you know, on photos, on video, and you know, my travels is captured all through that. So I can look back at that and, like, you know, they sit in the cupboard, but I can always bring them out, or and it brings up so many of those memories. And a simple, I know a simple taking a photo while having dinner, at a nice place, or home dinner, that's memories that your kids can look back, or you can look back and go, remember that. And it didn't have to be like a crazy moment that you need a photographer for. And really, I think that's when the confidence starts to build, is simply by, taking the photos. I have photos that I take that they don't get shown anywhere. And that doesn't matter. Like, they're still in the book for memories. We're very much a public social media generation life right now. And to be honest, like, there's times that I'll put, the perfect photo up as well, or like, I'm not posting every minute of the day, but it's just because I'm not feeling like it. And I guess that comes with confidence, of not confidence being like, I'd be happily be able to share, but that's stuff that I like to keep on my own as well. So there's like that element of not everything has to be posted as well, I think. And there's so much to that topic. And we discovered that at Happiness Hive was just figuring out, and we use the camera as a tool to get people in that first step. But the hope was that, by talking why maybe there was that lack of confidence, in inverted commas, why it was, why have you never tried, taking photos before? And then as well, I think the standout, and I don't know, just the standout from that was, and because I am not at the stage of, kids right now, but just even thinking was, one of the amazing ladies had not taken photos, and so her kids had not taken photos, and so that cycle was continuing. And she didn't think, I think she just didn't, she wasn't thinking about what, I'm not sure. I
know exactly
there was
who you were talking about. And I think it was that she didn't feel confident. She didn't like how she looked in photos. So therefore she was always the one that took the photographs, but didn't take a lot. And then when you were talking about creating memories,
it changed
changed her perception and the legacy of having photos just showing up in, and what you had said was, it's about capturing a moment in time. It's not about how you look and having, hair and stuff. It was about capturing a moment in time that is a memory. And so just to give the listeners a little bit of background, what we did at that, it was a couple of months ago, Maddi came and we used the camera as a tool about confidence, and we had a discussion about how people feel having photos taken, showing up, being visible in their businesses and in their lives. And we had a really beautiful discussion around that, and that in itself was very empowering. But then Maddi took headshots, took photos of all the women that were there, and she did exactly what she described in how she does it. It was sitting, chatting, capturing them in the moment. And there were some beautiful, beautiful photos around that. But this particular woman, she said, so she embraced the moment and she had photographs taken, and she had said to me afterwards, she said, that was so liberating that it helped me to look at things different, look at myself differently, but to look at what photographs represented differently. And that was just, so powerful, so powerful through the conversation of, a lot of women, sometimes I feel comfortable, sometimes I don't. And to normalize that conversation, and we're not, it's about embracing who we are, and the camera just captures that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was actually more like, I knew I would obviously get stuff out of it as well, but just those conversations, I don't think we openly talk about it enough. just because, I don't know, we just don't talk about, you know, how we're feeling all like that deep. And but it just it did release like these things of being like, actually, or just even looking at, you know, the idea of forgetting the Instagram, social media, and thinking about, you know, the printed photos in the photo book, and changing that whole thing of being like, actually, no, you know, we're creating photos not for a feed, but for the people in, you know, to look back and to keep. And one of my main things is print out your photos. Like, honestly, even if it is at Kmart, it doesn't matter. Just print them out, and you can do like amazing like photo books with them these days. And I don't know, I think like, because I look back and I've got like, you know, all my baby albums, and then my mum would do like year on year books of, you know, like when we were growing up. And it just triggers all these memories, or it doesn't even trigger memories, it just shows your kind of, it just puts it in. And especially like we are very much social these days and digital. It's just all in one place, and it's just like, it's like a memory, it's memory books, right? So
I haven't printed a photo for years. A photo for years. I might do that. Do you know what I find? And I'm sure you and the listeners are familiar with my story, but when Mum passed away when I was 12, I look back at the photos from that time through to my 20s. You can see the sadness and you can see that. And I was doing a big decluttering process at the moment, and there was some local paper photos of me in the local paper as a teenager leaving school or something, and I was so sad, and I just felt sad for me in those photos. And now the photos represent where I'm at in life as well. So, you know, even looking back on that and going, I've come a long way. And as much as I don't love looking at those photos, they do represent who I was. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
We even did one of the studies that I did. I was doing some at spiritual psychology, and I remember they got us for one of the weekend workshops. We had to get a photograph of us as a baby before we were maybe 2. And we had to get this photograph and then just look at ourselves as a baby, and what was the kind of the messages and what did we see in ourselves then. Oh my God, I was sassy. I was like this little, I reckon I would have just been over 12 months sitting in a pram, and I was just full of attitude. Like, it was interesting to going, wow, that was that. You know, that's because before we have a lot of that conditioning and stuff. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's an interesting version of me.
I think that's the cool thing, is like those versions. So obviously, like, you know, you look back to the photos when your mum passed away, and as much as you said they were hard to look at, they bring you back, and it is a part of your life, and it's a part of how you are and who you are today. So I know, I don't want to say it was a trigger, like, but it is that trigger of being like, wow, I have come so far. And I think that's even like, and like, that's, I have no idea, you know, you take a photo today and you're just like, there's this thing called Be Real on your phone, which I haven't like probably used it, but it takes a photo every day at the same, or at different times throughout the day, but it just, you have to take it right there in the moment.
Oh yes, I have heard that, yeah.
Which like is what it's basically, you know, another reason to get on your phone. That's why the app was created, right? But in the end, it actually has a really good purpose. Is who cares what you're doing in that time, that moment? Just take it, right? Like, I think and we have I'm going through the problem right now that I have too many photos on my phone, and my storage on my phone is actually making my phone not work. So there is that issue there too. But hard drive, print them out. Like, there's so many ways of just taking these photos. And like, yeah, iPhone, obviously it is so lovely to, have a photo with a professional photographer and, have that session as well. Because in that turn, it makes memories, right? That's the whole experience of hiring a photographer, is you get these photos, but you get to share these like an experience with your family or your couple or your partner, with your partner. So that's kind of like the idea of experiences, having that experience, but also capturing the moment. That's why, like, I always encourage my clients to where's a place that is important to you, or I've got an upcoming wedding that we do like a pre-shoot before, and their first date was at a bowling alley, so we're going to the bowling alley. So like there's these, and then that will be included in their wedding video. So there's all these things that it almost brings it back to the core memory. And I think that's the idea of the photos. You looked back at your photo when you were younger, and it was a core memory of yours, whether it was bad or good, but it was still that. And then you look back at it and you're like, that was like a memory, and these experiences. Again, there's so much to unpack, right? But
and it's interesting, and I love what you say about capturing the moment. And and some people capture the moment in their minds. That's also beautiful to be able to do that. But I think having that legacy as well, like the woman that was at Happiness Hive, that really shifted her perspective, going, oh yeah, it's not really about me, it's about me creating memories and capturing memories for my kids as well. So that was actually very beautiful. And I think some of that discussion too was around about not feeling comfortable with who they were and having the record of who they are. And so that when we were talking about it, the camera was a tool. It's really about what is it that you don't feel comfortable with, and then how can you work with that? That's where I sort of think it is about, well, what are the bits you're not comfortable about? And let's unpack that. So you're right, it is a very deep and complex system, the confidence.
And I don't think anyone has the answers as well. Like, obviously we can talk about it, right? But everyone is so individual, and really humans are complex, right? So there's going to be so many, and there'll be years that you love having your photo taken, there'll be years that you're just not feeling like that, but there's just something, and I think that it always brings it back to, there's just something about capturing that moment. And that's why I got into photography, why I got into videography. I've studied for the last 4 years. A lot of it was like short film, so fiction, fiction kind of things. But my passion is non-fiction, right? Like documentary, actually capturing. That's why I love weddings. That's why I love family sessions. That's why I love journalism, because it is capturing that moment in all different types of mediums. And at the same time, it is storytelling, right? We look back at our life and we basically tell a story of our life, right? It's the exact same thing. It's not made up. It's what's really happened. There's highs and lows. There's, the prince comes, the prince doesn't come, like all those things, right? But it's real and it's raw, and people are feeling like true emotion to it, which is really hard, right? But there's something powerful in it. But at the same time, we need that escape, and that's why I do like fiction stuff. But there's so much shit that happens in our own lives that we don't need movies sometimes.
No, I was going to say some people's lives are that. So what would your, putting you on the spot here, tips for listeners who maybe aren't feeling confident about themselves, and in any, whether that's about being photographed or anything. And there's lots that we've talked about, Maddi, that's already come out. But what would your kind of, am I putting you on the spot around that?
I think there's just so much. A little bit, only because I have to think about it.
It's complex. You know, I think there's a lot that's come out of there. There's a lot that's come out of there. I think what I was hearing you, some of the key things that you were saying is just to really embrace the moments that are happening.
Yeah.
And then, you know, don't think about the posing and don't think about the outcome. Capture you in the moment. It's almost like this freestyle, just be freestyle living and don't overthink things, is what I was sort of picking up from you.
Yeah.
What with your business, photo and film, so you're running that business at the moment. What are your plans in the future? Like, this is a big question as well. Do you see yourself staying as a journalist? Do you see you being like a filmmaker? Like, what's kind of buzzing around for you, do you think?
It's funny bring it up because my friend messaged me like a quote or something the other day, and I can't exactly remember what it I can find it, but I'll find it, because it just kind of was like, oh goodness gracious me. And it was like a bit morbid what I said, but at the same time I was like, so she said, so, and it's like a meme. So I had a wedding in my calendar for this Saturday, and I was very stressed out because I didn't know whose it was, and I was afraid I was going to miss it. Then I realized that it was part of my 20-year plan, and I said it like 5 years ago, it's my wedding, I'm missing my wedding.
Oh.
and I replied back, and I just, because 5-year plans, because I don't know, there's something about 5-year plans to me. I replied back, I don't make 5 to 10-year plans anymore because life is so all over the place. 1 minute you are going to Coles, and the next you're in lockdown, having to wear a mask, and not only being able to go out for 20 minutes. So I have no idea.
Nice answer. Right? Nice answer. I think that's a beautiful answer. It's about Maddi's not going to miss her own wedding. She's not going to plan so far in advance that she'll miss her own. Do you know what? I think that is absolutely a beautiful response, that you are very driven, very capable, but you're also very open to what is ahead, and you're embracing your moments in life and you're making the most.
And I think as well, like, if I think back to, you know, when I graduated high school, right? So I'm at almost like that next stage of my life, graduating university. I also didn't think where I was going to be. Like, you know, you just never know. But there's always going to be things that are always going to stick like within me. Like, there's things that are never going to change. I'm always going to storytell some way or another. There'll be different projects that I work on at different times. But, you know, I do Santa photos each year. I started during COVID because, you know, more Santas stopped being a thing. And so I now do Santa in the park. And I had like a midlife crisis this year because my regular Santa didn't want to. He was exhausted. Fair enough. He's been doing it for the last, 3 years. And he's like, oh my God, like, I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm not going to have like to be able to provide this like amazing memory for these kids that, were newborns when they first came, and then now they're walking around or running around and all that. So I know I'm going to storytell somewhere or another. Worked it out, got another Santa. But it also came back to, like, this is a service, but at the same time, this is something that I want to give back, or I want to give an opportunity for, the families to be able to have. So when I think 5-10 years in the making, there's always going to be those things, giving back to the community, whether that is through storytelling, photography, videography, journalism, however I'm doing it. whatever platform I'm doing it from. And look, I don't think that drivenness will go away. There might be times that I'm exhausted and I actually just, need a break, and I think that's okay. Or, things like, family come into plan, or travel needs to happen. And I'm open to all of those things, and I think that's the exciting thing. Who knows what's going to happen? I don't even know what I'm doing, like what I'm having for dinner tonight. So, we just have to, there's always going to be those cool things, right? And how they are presented in your life, we'll wait and see, right? Yeah, stay tuned. There's always something in the works with Maddi Green, so that's for sure.
I love that, because I'm further along my life journey than you are, and I look back and I can see those threads, because I reckon when I was your age as well, I was just starting to come out of my funk of starting to discover that there was some amazing opportunities available to me, and I had no idea what was going to unfold. And now looking back on the 30 years that has unfolded, it's amazing, and I can see how everything was kind of meant to be for me. At the time, I couldn't see that, and I don't think I would have wanted to have been that planned out about things. So it'll be beautiful to see, as you progress along, just what unfolds. I think that's I think that's a really beautiful space.
And don't get me wrong, it's really hard to because I'm a very much a planned person. So, ideally I would love to plan out the next 10 years of my life, but realistically that's just not going to happen. So, you just have to let it flow. Everything happens for a reason, as much as that's cheesy. And we'll see what happens.
Not cheesy at all. Maddi, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so I guess my journalism, my journalism page, I don't know what that is. What is it? My branding page, right? Who I am. MaddiGreen.oz. So that's there. And then for business and for photography, videography, at Maddi Green .photo and film. So
we'll put those in the show notes. We'll put those details. So if anybody's looking for Maddi to do
all capacities.
And you've got a podcast too, don't you?
There's lots of things in the works, and I'm at that next stage, right? So everything is not to be it's to be continued, TBC, right? To be continued.
Oh my gosh, Maddi, that's just been beautiful. Thank you so much, and big hugs and happiness to you. And I would love for our listeners to rate and review the podcast so we can get it into as many ears and hearts as we possibly can. So whatever platform you're listening on or watching on, give us a big shout out. Love that. So thanks, Maddi.
Kath, it's been amazing. Thank you.